like pensioner housing, like libraries, like recreation centres and halls. These are facilities and assets that people have told us time and time again through every single consultative means that we should be keeping, building on, improving and having in perpetuity for the people of Auckland. And so this puts the fear of death into me. I don't have the trust, I'm afraid. And I don't actually think the people of Auckland have the trust in this council at the moment to follow this through in a way that protects that kind of asset, the assets that are dear to the people. Why would you put libraries in the mix? Why is everything on the table? Why is pensioner housing on the table? And I'll tell you something else. We have just put staff through a really difficult change process in the community development area called Empowering Communities. So are we going to put them through that again by saying that everything's up for grabs? Because I'm not allowing that. I'm not supporting this. So no, it's not right that everything should be on the table. And it's about time we decided what our core business is a political discussion, and then tell whoever to go away and have a look at it. That's it.
Thank you, Callum. Councillor
Yes,
Penrose.
thank you, Madam Chair. So just at the purpose number one there that what it highlights here. So this will cover the Auckland Energy Consumer Trust as well, will it? Because through the LTP process, I think this was submitted on as well.
It will include the trust.
Thank you, Councillor Lee.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is a complex issue, and we have to ask ourselves, why are we doing this again? And clearly, we cannot sustain banging up the rates the way we have been. And so we're looking around for alternative funding. That's fair and reasonable. However, what I'm concerned about is that key assets, and they've both been mentioned, Ports of Auckland and Auckland International Airport, provide an alternative means of funding, about 100 million a year. And so it seems odd that if we're really looking for alternative funding, we are going to look at selling those sorts of assets. And of course, the public have been mentioned here, and it's been made clear again and again, the public do not want those assets sold. And so that is a real concern. The Mayor has been principled about this from the start. He has a covenant with the public in regard to assets, which is why he was overwhelmingly elected both times. And so I think we shouldn't be just wiping that away and starting all over again as if the public and its beliefs didn't matter. So I'll make that point. The other point is, coming back to the original one about, how we're going to fund our costs, it would be really, really helpful, and I have asked for this, that we focus the same amount of energy and expertise on looking at our costs. And in regard to costs, we're not going to do this in-house, and we have enormously talented people here. We're going to have an outside, not one, but two firms. And I wonder how much that will all cost. In terms of the media coverage, alarming media coverage, I have to say that there are rumours going around this town that at a meeting of the private sector some weeks ago, a senior council manager, namely the chief executive, is rumoured to have said that he preferred...
Thank you, Councillor Lee.
I would like the chief executive to clarify that, whether it's true or not.
Councillor Lee, you cannot keep banging on about staff. It's not fair to the staff.
I am talking about a senior manager,
Point of
the chief
order,
executive saying he preferred to sell assets. So all I'm asking is that true or false?
Order. Do we not have standing orders?
We do have standing orders.
It's a question.
Madam Chair,
It's not. I'm not
my
accepting
point of
that
order
question.
is
Yes.
that the councillor is relying on rumour and innuendo for the statement that he's making, and he's basing his question on that. It doesn't fit with our standing orders, which is the requirement to work respectfully with our staff at all times. If there's a genuine question in there, it can be asked differently.
Absolutely.
Well, I've made the point, but that's
Thank
the
you,
basis of the worrying media
Councillor
coverage. I
Lee.
can tell you because a media
Councillor
person,
Lee,
a very experienced media person was at that meeting.
Believe all that.
Councillor
Okay,
Lee, we asked for this review.
Okay, the next, and I recall a debate at the LTP meeting in June, whether that, and at that meeting, strategic assets were removed altogether. So now they're back again. Is that not true?
They were not removed. There's been...
The Mayor took them
Thank
out
you,
of the resolution.
Councillor Lee, we are working on the resolutions
Okay.
of the Budget Committee.
I've got one more point to make. One more point to make about alternative funding, because of course we need it. Another source of alternative funding is the Diversified Asset Fund, which this council inherited from the region in 2010. It's been managed by Auckland Council Investments Limited, but as part of the CCO review, it was decided by council management to take that money away from ACIL and bring it into Treasury. Since that time, which I understand was last February, there has not been one report on the state of that fund. And I think in terms of transparency, and if we are interested in alternative funding, let's have regular reports about the state of that fund and how much alternative funding it is making. At this stage, it's been moved into the council, the doors and windows have been closed, and we, as members of the governing body, have no information of the state of that fund. When it was under the responsibility of ACIL, there was a monthly report on it. So please, Madam Chair, this is on your watch, your responsibility. I would like to see a monthly report on the diversified fund. Thank you. Alternative fund. Thank you.
John, do you want to reply?
Yeah, through you, Chair, on the diversified financial asset portfolio, we're more than happy to provide a monthly report. The fund is being managed in exactly the same way as it was under the previous control of ACIL.
Thank you. Councillor Crum.
But not as transparently.
Councillor Crum.
Madam Chairwoman, I welcome and echo some of the Deputy Mayor's comments, welcome this particular review, and especially insofar as it is incredibly wide scoped. That's exactly what we need at this stage. Everything should be on the table because we need to understand what is on the table in its entirety. I think at the start, though, we always should recognise some of the early considerations. It forms part of our thinking and part of what undergirds our way going forward as a group around this table. And we should be agreeing that we are not godlike guardians, we're governors. And if you set about doing your governance role correctly, we obviously need to operate more efficiently and move towards stated goals. Simple as that. Naive guardianship on the basis of information that we do not know is a misguided process. We also need, and it's going to be very evident, I think, that both the yes and no's today will recognise that we're operating in a realm of lack of trust. It's the exact phrase that I used in the LTP debate. So with the recent rate rises and the lack of visibility there along some of those processes, we're going to have to communicate this very clearly and very transparently, this process that we'll undertake with the ports issues and some of the management processes and the twice removed issues. We're going to have to be very careful about not skewing our views on retaining decision rights when we may not need to. So there's going to be a lot of considerations that we'll need to cover here. I also feel very strongly that we're going to face perceptions that we're looking to raise capital to mitigate dumb decision making. That's going to be very problematic for us. Instead, what we're looking at here is squarely pitching ourselves along the lines of savvy opportunism. There's nothing wrong with doing that as governors, looking at opportunism for what it is that we hold, what it is that we could do with that, and how to raise revenue in appropriate ways. We need to position ourselves for growth, simple as that, and improve our overall prospects. There's no other task that we should set out to do. Consumer confidence, and if I can call our ratepayers consumers in this particular instance, is going to be a delicate balance to strike. But we will have to work very hard at this. And if done right, in summary, the process, I believe, will and could, well, I'll say could and will, increase both our reputation and our bottom line. So I do welcome this and look forward to the unedited report in November.
Confidential unedited report. Councillor John Walker.
Thank you. Just to remind councillors, many years ago, under another council, under another mayor, there was a fire sale by the council. The airport shares were sold off, the assets were sold off, and where are they today? It's all right to sell assets, but I mean, unless if they're very strategic, there's no point in doing it. Auckland Airport shares, I remember many years ago sitting on council at Manukau, and they bought $1 million, a couple of $1 million worth of shares at $2.95, and I thought, this is crazy. The shares are now double. Certainly. Tourism at the moment is leading the way for New Zealand, so the airport shares are only going to keep on going up. I mean, if you want to stop expenditure, you've got to stop spending. That's the only way to do it.
Thank you. And I'd remind councillors, we're not selling anything yet. We're having a review of assets. We haven't made any decisions of what we're going to do until that report comes back to us. Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be interested in seeing the scope, the job description for these two independent advisory firms, and I join with Councillor Quacks and others as far as us seeing an unsanitised version. It's going to be difficult because, as we can see on page 16, the council appointed two independent advisory firms to provide advice to management, which is fine, but it would be good given, as you've said, we as councillors have asked for this review. We as councillors, Madam Chair, should also be the ones that have access to these two independent advisory firms in that confidential meeting, that they front up with their papers and their findings, and that there is also an ability for elected representatives to sign off their scope of works that will be put out into the marketplace as to what is expected of them. Because, as you've asked, we have asked for that review. This is political decision making, and we should also have some control in what's asked of those advisory firms, and subsequently have access to them once they've completed their work. So they'll be at that meeting?
They will come to the meeting in November.
Okay, no,
which
that's
will
good.
Be confidential. That's
good, Madam Chair. I'd also like to see, and I accept that this is a broad review, but I expect that when we do get this piece of work, Madam Chair, that it includes not just the latest valuations and what the partial or whole sell down of assets could net or whatever, but we also have a look at the longer picture of what our annualised dividends could return. And so when we get to that point around making those decisions, which won't come out of this first blush initially, but that we actually have a really good look at what if we're looking at any of our strategic or non-strategic assets, what the dividends are versus the whole or partial sell down. I'd also like to think that our council car parks are put up for this. You may remember last year, tournament